Welcome to this deep dive on Amazon Bedrock AgentCore identity. Your agent needs to call external APIs, maybe Salesforce, maybe Payment Gateway, maybe your own internal services. Those APIs require authentication, but you don't want your agent to have access to the credentials needed to access those APIs. So how does your agent prove who it is and get authorization to call those APIs? In this video, we'll see how AgentCore Identity lets your agent authenticate and access external APIs without ever touching the client credentials. So how does the agent prove who it is? We'll answer that question in two parts. First is the established part, where you create your agent's identity and securely store the credential it needs for external services. This happens before runtime. And second is the proof step. At runtime, AgentCore handles the authentication for your agent. It proves your agent's identity and gets the token for the agent to access the external API. As a developer, you only need to do three things. First, you create a credential provider. Why? Because your agent needs tokens to call external APIs, but shouldn't have access to the secrets used to generate them. The credential provider stores those secrets securely in AWS Secrets Manager. Your agent will never see them. Second, use the @requires access token decorator in your agent code. This tells AgentCore Runtime that it needs to get an access token using the MyAPI provider. Before the function runs, AgentCore fetches a valid token and injects it into the access token parameter. And third, you deploy your agent, and you are ready with an agent that can access an API when needed. So that's what you do as a developer. Three simple steps. But what does AgentCore do for you? From here on, we are going to go behind the scenes. Everything you're about to see is handled automatically by AgentCore. You don't need to build or manage any of this yourself. When you created a credential provider, you gave AgentCore identity, the provider name, the client ID, client secret, and the identity provider's discovery URL. AgentCore identity takes the client secret and stores it securely in AWS Secrets Manager. Your credentials never touch your code base. Once complete, you get back a provider ARN and provider name. This is what your agent code references in the requires access token decorator. When you deploy your agent, AgentCore Runtime created a workload identity for your agent in the AgentCore Identity service. This workload identity is how your agent will prove who it is when it asks the identity service to retrieve credentials and tokens. It's stored in the identity directory and associated with your deployed agent. Now that completes the established phase. Your credentials are stored securely and your agent has an identity. Now let's see what happens at runtime when your agent needs to prove who it is to access the external service. A client can now invoke our agent. This could be using IAM or OAuth authentication, but we won't go into those details here. Once the client is authenticated, AgentCore Runtime gets a workload token for this agent. AgentCore Runtime then invokes the agent container, passing the workload token in the header. This token is the agent's proof of identity. It will use this to request an OAuth para token when it needs to call external APIs. Let's look back at the code the developer wrote. The requires access token decorator specifies a credential provider name. When call external API function is called, the decorator is triggered. Let's see what happens behind the scenes. The agent code calls AgentCore identity, passing the provider name and the workload token. Identity service first validates the workload token. Is this really the agent it claims to be? Once validated, it retrieves the client credentials from AWS Secrets Manager. The client ID and the secret is stored in the earlier step. Identity service then calls the external identity provider's token endpoint using the client credentials and receives an access token. The token is cached in the token vault for use and returned to the agent code. The agent never sees the client secret. It only receives the access token it needs. Now the agent has the access token and can call the external API. The agent makes the API request with a token in the authorization header. The external API validates the token with its identity provider, confirms it's valid, and then returns a response. Finally, the agent processes the API response and returns the results to the client through AgentCore runtime. And that's a complete picture of how AgentCore Identity enables secure external API access using OAuth client credentials flow. Your credentials stay secure, your agent proves its identity, and your code stays clean. Thanks for watching this video. Check out the Amazon Bedrock AgentCore documentation to get started. Happy building.